I'm in such a like a shitty mood from bitching with you. I've for the last 45 minutes we've been just bitching about stuff, and now I have to cheer up and start the roundup. So I don't know I have to shift gears. Every month, me and my co-host It's Plenty get together and spend 45 minutes bitching about all of the new products in FPV that we think are dumb and aren't going to cover. But some of the products are actually interesting, and we cover them in the monthly new product roundup.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true indeed.
And Plenty, I said earlier, there aren't as many products this month as there are in some months, which means we'll only go for 45 minutes instead of an hour and a half. And I said, are there fewer products, or do we just give fewer Fs about the products that are out this month? Yeah. And you said,
I think I gave the normal amount of Fs. So
that's usually me. You're like, I don't care about these products. And I'm like, oh, let's cover them anyway. Maybe this month I have been brought down to your level. I don't know. But we are going to go over new products that have come out in the last month in FPV. We're going to give you our off-the-cuff opinion, thoughts about them, let you know they exist. And at the end of the video, we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to pick one of these products to give away to some random lucky winners. Okay, let's put our game faces on, Blenty. Let's pretend we're happy to be here.
All right.
No, there are two new products that have come out this month that we were going to put right in the intro spot, the first spot, our top products. And I think the first one should be a new action camera, the Insta360 One RS.
Yes. This one's kind of interesting. I'm really, to be honest with you, not totally sure what the Insta One RS is. I spent a little bit of time trying to figure that out through their marketing information. But what I cannot figure out is this like part of the 1R? Is this completely new? Does this use similar parts? I guess maybe, can you help me with that information?
Well, we can certainly try and figure it out. So I have an Insta360 One R, and the cool thing about the Insta360 One R is it's modular, and it can either be a 360 camera, or you can swap the lens module. You can see it here on the right side. You can swap the lens module out for a traditional wide-angle action camera, and then they also have a special 1-inch sensor Leica lens high-quality mod. They call them mods or modules. And that's the Insta360 One R. So what is the One RS? Okay, so here we've got the RS on the left and the One R on the right, and we can see some clear differences in the specs. The 4K lens has a wider aperture, f2.4 versus 2.8. The 360 lens is the same, and the resolution, let's go to video resolution, it goes higher. This looks like a 6K. The RS is a 6K camera, whereas the One R is a 4K camera. Yeah,
it looks
or
like
5.7K.
It's the same bit rate.
But yeah, so it looks like this is the One RS is just the One R, but upgraded to 5.7K. 4K boost lens with a larger 1/2-inch sensor. Well, that's good. I mean, more resolution for a 360 cam is good because, you've got that 4K resolution, but instead of putting it in a 120-degree field of view, you're spreading it around a whole 180-degree field of view. And so by the time you crop into the actual field of view you want to use, you may not only have a 1080 or less effective resolution. So a larger sensor is going to definitely do better. Should improve the low light performance as well. So it looks like this is an upgraded Insta360 One R with higher resolution and a faster processor.
Next generation.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Insta360 One R, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the image quality certainly is not on par with a GoPro. That's usually the case. If you're purely concerned with image quality, GoPro is the best action camera you can get, but the image quality is certainly good. The fact that it has a form factor very similar to a traditional action cam, as opposed to most 360 cams, which are not very good for mounting on quadcopters, makes a lot of sense. And the ability to swap it out from a 360 cam to an action cam can make the money work for people. I've got a full review of the Insta360 One R, comparing it to a GoPro. I'll put that down in the video description if you're interested in checking it out.
And just for clarity there, it does look like the 4K lens, the core, the battery, and the bracket are new, but you can still use, and it's the same, the old 360 lens and the old wide angle 1-inch. So those are the same as they were, and it looks like they are compatible.
That's nice. Alrighty, well, that's the Insta360 One RS.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Because that is interesting for people. It does look like you can use, they say you can use the 4K boost lens with your existing 1R core coming in an update later. And you can use your 1R lenses with the 1RS core as well. So.
Oh, interesting. So if I have a 1R like this, I can buy the upgraded lenses and get the improved resolution. Maybe just not the improved speed, but that's really nice.
Yep.
Who knew? A modular product that is forward compatible with upgrades. What a concept. The other top product that we've got this month is the 533 Tiny Trainer, which is not a new product. But this is a new solderless. Is it completely solderless? I think it is. I think that's what they told me. A new solderless build kit available for pre-order from FPV Crate, and presumably also from 533. Actually, I don't know about that. Maybe FPV Crate's doing the solderless build. But if you don't like to solder, this comes pre-soldered connectors for motors, camera, and VTX ready to go.
Yeah, I think you have a video on the Tiny Trainer as well from a while back, and it's the same beast here, just with a different flight controller, I think, for plug and play. And then a nice setup. It's got Emma Turner, the Tiny Turner motors on it and stuff. These are a blast to fly. I don't know, if nobody out there has flown these and you're considering it, these are a good time. They're heavier. They're meant to be like a spec racing thing. There are Tiny Trainer spec races where you can go and fly these against other folks, and you kind of have that weightiness, but it's kind of meant to emulate the larger DRL, the 7-inch heavy DRL quads down at a smaller size. And still get that idea of the spec racing and the fun and the LEDs too, if you want those. So.
Yeah, they're durable as shit. They're really durable. Yeah. And it's so counterintuitive to say that making a quadcopter heavier makes it more fun to fly. But in this case, I do think there's some truth to that. If you're interested in spec racing, of course, we're not currently in the Tiny Trainer season, but it usually runs over the winter. But it is well worth it. And for the first time, it is available with digital. Yeah. You can buy it with digital. Is that DJI? Presumably it's DJI. Or is it HD0?
HD0. It is HD0.
That's amazing. I was going to say, I've seen people put Caddx Vistas, even naked Vistas, in one of these, and it really changes it. It's even heavier. You can't use the canopy. You have to just use the standard top plate, and just really sort of changes what it is. But with HD0, it feels really perfect for racing. I do see here it says 95% solder free, so it's not completely solder free. Just want to make sure the record's straight there. So if you're interested in checking that out, there's links in the video description. There's links in the video description below to all of the products we're going to talk about. There are also timestamps. So if you're looking for something specific or you want to just move on to the next thing, check out the timestamps, chapter markers in the timeline and in the video description below. Next up, we're going to talk about flight controllers and ESCs that we think are worth your attention this month. And Blunty, I can't help but think about how complicated buying a flight controller and ESC has gotten. Just everything's out of stock, first of all. So if you've got a favorite one, you may not be able to get it. And everything's super expensive. But there's a couple of other specific complications going on right now that I think people need to know about.
Going down the list, we've got H7 issues. So almost all, I believe all the H7 flight controllers, except for, I think, Dominic Clifton, the
SP Racing H7.
The SP Racing H7 board does not have this issue because he coded it out. But basically, a lot of the H7s are having an issue where they're like misreporting stuff to bidirectional D-Shot on 4.3, and this is causing some issues. So RC4 is hopefully fixing that, but it's still under development, and they're still trying to iron out exactly the best solution there.
And you might think that an H7 processor is a super high-end processor, so you're probably not going to run into it. But we're seeing more and more flight controllers nowadays using H7 processors just because the F7s and the F4s that they would be using have gotten so expensive. For example, here's a JHEMCU GH734 AIO flight controller, and that's what you're looking for. That H7 processor means you're going to have these issues with Betaflight 4.3 and bidirectional D-Shot, and therefore RPM filtering not working.
Yeah, and in addition, we've also got issues like, pretty soon, though 4.3 is not even released yet, we're looking at 4.4 and possibly other flight controller firmware is going to have an issue of having limited flash space on the F411 and the F722. So it's maybe a consideration that you only want F405 or F745, or that, soon that might be a problem. We're also seeing issues with on the F55 Mamba boards or the SpeeDB boards, they're using clone MCUs, and the clone MCUs on the ESCs can cause issues with the BLHeli32 firmware. There's just a lot of different caveats and things to consider, when you're buying boards these days.
Yeah, and we will definitely try and steer you guys towards products that are going to give you a good result. Blunty, I'm trying to think about this H7 issue. Betaflight 4.2 doesn't have support for the H7 processors, right?
It does. It depends on which board you get, but most boards will have at least one 4.2.11 target.
Okay.
That has been the case for most of the boards. There might be a couple that use a specific BOM, like components, that won't work in 4.3, but I believe most of them have at least one 4.2 target.
So then when you go to Betaflight 4.3, because you want the latest and greatest, that's when your bidirectional D-Shot stops working if you have an H7 processor. Is that right?
Yes, and most of these boards are shipping on 4.3. So you'll get the board and it won't work with bidirectional D-Shot, and you'll have to flash back to 4.2.11, or you'll have to flash up to some kind of nightly or special build from the bug fixes they're currently working on.
Well, that was going to be my other question. Betaflight 4.3 technically is still in release candidate, is not out yet. When it comes out, or when RC4 comes out, is this all going to be fixed? Surely it will.
Yeah, from the pace that I've seen and from looking at the bug history of that bidirectional D-Shot issue, it does not look like 4.3 will release without this being completely fixed.
Okay.
For the end users. To mention, RPM filtering isn't the most critical thing anymore. It is still nice to have, but now with all the new filtering in 4.3, if you use proper presets that don't include RPM filtering, you should be able to get away without using it. If you did want to run 4.3 on these, not run all the crazy stuff, and still use this board. So
okay, alrighty. So that's a good little roundup of those issues. Let's take a look at the new products we've got this month, Blunty, and we're going to start out by looking at products from someone who has somehow been able to keep stuff in stock more than most, I think, and that is Diatone.
Yeah, it seems like they're consistently putting out, like you said, reasonable products at a decent price. I think we maybe have looked at this stack before, similar stacks, but I think it's cool to point out that they're able to consistently put these out for quite a good price. I think it's not bad for 111. What is the dual MPU price there?
So this is the Diatone Mamba Basic flight controller. Mamba Basic is their budget line. It's so weird to me to see an H7 processor on a budget flight controller. That's a very expensive high. You'd normally see like an F4 processor. Yeah,
so I think the problem we're seeing now is that these F4s and F7s, the prices are going up and up and up because of the shortages, and that's causing, unfortunately, maybe the other way, it's causing these $10 or $20 H7s to be much more reasonable when you're paying $10 or $20 for an F7 or a F4.
Right. The unfortunate thing is it's driving the price of everything up. There was a time when a stack like this, ESC and flight controller together, would have been $60. And now, $60 is the flight controller alone practically, and the whole thing is like $100. Well, you see $111, but it is in stock. It is in stock. We've got the BMI 270 gyro, and then there's an option for dual MPU 6000 gyros. You asked about the price for the dual. The price appears to be the same for both. Interesting. Dual MPU 6000.
Another thing to know about these, I believe these are going to be the same case. A lot of these Diatone ESCs have been shipping with what are like clone MCUs. So they're like Chinese companies who make basically a copy of the MCUs that would go on here instead of an F4 or an F0. They'll put like a whatever G0 or whatever the weird name of the clone ones are, which are like similar stats, but maybe not the same. So one quirk of these F55s that are both the Mamba F55 and in the stack is actually that you have to turn off temperature protection in BL Heli 32, or they'll like cut out because they don't read temperature properly. And that's actually comes stock on them, but if you flash them, the new config doesn't seem to have that information. So
yeah, good point. We covered that on the news. So if you got this one and you flash BL Heli to a new version, and then after flashing, when you try to fly, it just kind of shuts down and loses power, you got to go in and turn temperature protection off. Good point.
And I also want to quickly say, the other company we've seen, SpeedyBee, also was using clone MCUs and having some issues in one of their releases. However, Diatone seems to be pretty good about testing their products. We haven't seen similar issues with Diatone yet, at least that I'm aware of, where SpeedyBee had some issues with tones and bidirectional D-shot not working properly.
And
just with the
motors.
ESC. Yeah, and just with the ESC firmware specifically. And that doesn't seem to be the case, even though Diatone is also using clone MCUs. So that might be the case, and at least you know that, but it does seem like they're at least doing part of their due diligence there to make that work. So
okay, good. Well, sadly, we live in a world where $120, $110 is budget, but the good news is that you get an H7 processor with a ton of pads. It always bugs me with Diatone that they don't put this silkscreen layout on their flight controllers. Well, some of them they don't. So you got to refer to your owner's manual but when you're soldering it up. But that's not the end of the world. They're nice big pads for someone to solder to.
Well, we've got, I don't know, more BetaFPV, F4s.
BetaFPV F4 flight controller.
I have Express LRS on them.
That's good. Express LRS built in is good.
Yep, 12 amps. That's maybe questionable.
Questionable in what way? Why is 12 amps questionable?
It's BetaFPV, so they're not at the top of my list for trusting the amp rating on them.
Yeah. The bottom line, Blunty, is that I think whenever you're buying an all-in-one flight controller like this, with the ESC built in, that it's more difficult to do, and that you're more likely to run into QC issues. We've both, you and I, run into QC issues and durability issues with these BetaFPV flight controllers. They are in stock and they're a decent price, and I wouldn't categorically say don't buy them, but I would say that I've blown them in relatively mild crashes and thought, maybe I should be buying something else.
It looks, the only difference I can find after scanning this is it does look like there's a plug for the USB instead of USB-C. So I'm assuming it comes with a plug with the USB connection on it, which maybe makes it easier in some builds.
Is this is the same picture on the V1 and the V2? That can't
interesting.
be right.
If you scroll down, or if you
they've gone to a plug. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, though, I mean, it's probably more convenient in most cases. Because then you can, move it out of whatever you're building in. I guess toothpicks typically have fairly easy access, but sometimes maybe an arm or something gets in the way and you want to move that out. So,
okay. What would we recommend? If we're going to kind of poo-poo on this product, Blunty, we should at least tell people a better product. What would you pick instead?
I don't know. I've heard good success with that JHEMCU H7.
There's a GH7 AIO. Yeah.
I know multiple people using that. But
God. It's twice.
It's also got similar issues with the bidirectional D-shot thing. So you got to do the target.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a good Whoop flight controller at this point that I can recommend personally.
Well, the JHEMCU, what about the F7? Yeah. Here's the thing, Blunty. There's better boards out there. Like, I've had good results with the GetRC Toothpick flight controller in my smart, in the Baby Croc, the 4-inch Baby Crocodile. And then the JHEMCU H7 has been pretty solid in terms. And then you've also got things like the iFlight Beast F7 and the Beast H7. All of those boards are in the $90 plus price range, though. And that, I think, is why we keep coming back to the BetaFPV flight controller, even though on some level, I hold my nose while I do it. It's $45. And they do work for a lot of people. Like, the Tiny Trainer comes with BetaFPV flight controller, and they wouldn't be using that if it was not worth some, attention.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's where you're at. You're trying to build a Toothpick or something like that, and you want 12 amp all-in-one flight controller for $45. BetaFPV's got it for you. Cross your fingers, you get a good one.
So let's look at one more AIO board before we leave that category. We looked at the 12 amp beta board, so now we should probably look at, this is the more traditional AIO. A lot of these have always been a 5 amp board. And this is another built-in Express LRS and F405 F4, but this is going to be a $72 entry into that category. So quite a stark contrast,
So this is a 5 amp ESC. That means it is basically made for what, like 1S Toothpick down to whoop size motors. It's not going to be like a 3S heavy Toothpick. In fact, it can only take up to 2S voltage.
Yeah, this is more like the 65 or 75 millimeter whoop, I think, is probably the best place for this to go. So
would it even work on like a 1S 3-inch Toothpick? Which you wouldn't trust a 5 amp ESC for that.
I don't think I would put a 5 amp on it. I mean, you might could. I would guess it depends on like what props you run and what KV motors and stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
But like, it's going to be real close. Like, I think Navy Drone shipped their, what was that thing they sold? Or what is that thing they sell?
I know what you're talking about.
Their clone baby tooth thing, I believe has 5 amps on it.
If we're not sure about how to build a Toothpick, the least we could do is go look at FPV Cycle and look for their 1S. Here's their 1S with 15 amp ESC. Where's their 1S though? That is their 1S. That's got a 15 amp ESC. Here's their 1S AIO with, oh, look. Yeah, that's me. That's me. This one has a 7 amp FETs. We'll say approximately 7 amp FETs. That's probably conservative. Rugi's. So yeah, it sounds like Rugi would also agree that 5 amps is probably on the edge for this kind of build. All right, but there you go. $70. Right. Jesus. Who'd have thought you'd see a day where you're spending $70 on the flight controller for a little whoop or something like that? That's painful.
Yeah.
It is what it is. One more company I want to call some attention to is Holybro. Holybro, another reliable manufacturer, seems to keep things in stock and make pretty good quality stuff. They have a new H7. We talked earlier about how manufacturers are switching to the H7 processor because of shortages of other stuff. This is a weird one, the way they've got this laid out. Take a look at how it's a 20 millimeter mount, but then it overhangs the 20 millimeter mounting brackets with these little tiny solder pads. What are your thoughts about this, Blenty?
Yeah, I think probably because this is an H7, they were just really trying to get it squeezed in there as best they could and fit all those pads on there. Mm-hmm. But that is, it's definitely pretty tight on there the way they've done it.
If you're bad at soldering, don't dive into this.
True. Though, I don't know. It depends. Do you think these through holes are harder than like two pads in front of each other?
Well, that's the thing. Some people are going to really love that these are through holes. I just can't help but notice, like, look at these little capacitors here. Look how tight they are. If you're sloppy with your solder, you're going to mess that up. I've also found on the Holybro boards that this copper around the through hole is so thin, it can be really difficult to get the heat on it. And I struggle a little bit, but it's not impossible, but I do think I struggle with it a little bit, and I think other people will too. There is a huge variety. They have a lot of different pads, a lot of different UARTs and so on. So it's a very versatile flight controller, especially for a 20 millimeter.
All right, I got to call it out because I saw it. Why is the ground square on the right side and the ground is not square on the left side? The ground is the circle next to the square. That's a...
Yeah, this is VTX. Normally, you would make all your ground pads square.
Yeah, on the right, it is, but on the left, it is not.
Indeed. Well.
All right, well,
we found something to complain about. We've done our job. So there's this version with the ESC. It is a 45 amp, 32-bit ESC. And then there's another version if you fly analog with a video transmitter that stacks on top if you want to go that direction. It is a, what's the output power of this video transmitter real quick?
Addle. You never know what kind of creature you're going to get with FPV products.
Yeah. 800 milliwatt, 20, that's actually really good. 800 milliwatt, 20 millimeter video transmitter. There's only one other of those that I know of, and it's the Rush Ultimate 20 millimeter. Oh, and it's got a microphone on board. Damn, this is actually, I'm more excited about the video transmitter than I am about the flight controller, to be honest with you. That's pretty exciting. Good LED readout. Very nice. That's a nice video transmitter, actually. I'm going to get that on my list.
All right, so let's move away from the flight controllers and ESCs. I think we did enough of those. Let's go to some bind and fly, built and tuned, plug and play, whatever you want to call it, that category of quads. And the first one we'll look at is the LeDrib SkyLite, which is going to look very familiar to many people, I think. It's kind of like if you took a Skyliner and you slammed it into a squirt.
Yeah, that's right, Blenty. Here's a shot of the frame by itself, and anybody who's seen a Skyliner is going to be familiar with it. They've shrunk it down to 3-inch props, although I think it can also take 3.5-inch if it needs to. But the basic frame design is more or less just a Skyliner. You have the option for braces, and of course you have the option to add ducts. I am not like a daily driver Cinewhoop user. So I asked Aaron Ciotti, who flies Cinewhoops professionally, what his thoughts were about this. And his first comment was that it is just too heavy. Because they didn't start with a Cinewhoop as their design. They started with the Skyliner and adapted it, especially with the 3D printed ducts. He just was not happy with the weight. And that's a big concern with a Cinewhoop, because of course, if you're going to carry a GoPro on those 3-inch props, you need as much of your payload capacity for the GoPro as possible.
Yeah, this feels a lot to me like the old I don't know, like this is kind of stuck in a couple of years ago.
Right.
Like it feels odd for this to be released currently, and that's because like what do we know about I mean, there's so many things we've learned since the Squirt came out. We've learned that, one of the reasons the Squirt worked so well and had ducts was because the Squirt props dig into the ducts, and the Squirt props make it so there's no barrier there, and you're getting a good, duct action on the ducts. The other things we've learned is that although that is the case, and that's how you get good action out of the ducts, most of the time it seems like they're just pulling wind. They're kind of like pushing you around a little bit, and they're not doing a lot of that extra duct action that you would get. So we saw a lot of switch in the industry to both the hard ducted shorter stuff and also no ducts essentially, which are just like prop guards.
Right. We're looking here at the GetRC Cinelog 3.5, the iFlight ProTech 3.5, very similar design. The ducts weren't doing anything anyway. They were basically just prop guards. And so they said, well, let's save the weight and save the size and just build the damn thing with prop guards.
And I think that's a big part of it too, is the wind blowing on those guards is a big thing too, but also the fact of that weight. Like Ciotti said, the weight is just so heavy. And when you can design around something like we're seeing here, where you have this like prop guarded area and everything's so much tighter, and you're not like trying to support these giant ducts and stuff. I don't know. This just does feel like an odd entry into the market for me. But,
it feels like it's 2 years too late.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say something here. This feels a lot to me like what you see out of a company who got bought by a big corporate company. Is like, hey, we're not going to make a modern product. We're going to make a product that looks like it's stuck in the past because we know that'll sell and we got to get revenue or something. Yeah,
I would go a different direction with that without contradicting you or disagreeing with you. I would say that if you look at the Rotor Riot 7-inch that they released a little while back, they essentially took the HD one, they scaled it up to 7 inches, and what motors did they use? Did they use a 2806 motor, which is the standard for 7-inch props? No, they used I don't remember, I think it was the 2306, but I'm not sure. They used the same 5-inch motors that they had in stock, and they flew it, and it flew okay, but everybody knows 2806 is the best size of motor for best response with 7-inch props. I think what happened here is that they went back to what they knew and what they had, rather than starting all the way from scratch. And they were like, here's what we're going to do. Look at the Bubby Moxie frame. The Moxie has clear DNA in the Skyliner. Nothing wrong with that. But when they went back to what they knew and what they had, it was a Skyliner and a Shendrone Squirt. And that's what they released.
Yeah, instead of going into CAD and designing a fresh frame, they took the Skyliner into CAD and then played with the Skyliner to make this.
To make it,
I see what you mean, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that, unfortunately, is what we're seeing here, for sure. I don't know. Maybe people are into this, but I think there personally are a lot better options that I can see in the market for similar or better price. So
yeah. The choice of motors, the 1507 motors, I think they're 1507s. They look like it.
Yep.
That's like Cinewhoops today are flying, more of them are flying like 2004s for better cooling. But they've got they're freaking brother hobbies, for goodness sakes. So there's nothing wrong with this per se. It just does feel like it's a little bit dated. Many people are going to buy it. Many people are going to love it. It is going to come with Rotor Riot's, it's going to be built right here in Orlando. Rotor Riot's going to back it up. They're going to build it for you. You can buy it ready to fly with a goggle and transmitter. There's all pros, but in terms of pure analysis of the flight and design, it's a little dated. All right. Well, let's talk about something else. This one for beginners. This is the new Emax EZ-Pilot kit. Emax EZ-Pilot is their beginner kit, ready to fly, controller, goggles, and quad. Just take it out of the box, flip a switch, and go. This is the pro version where they've upgraded. I think they upgraded the goggles, maybe also the controller. I was so excited about this Blunty. You saw me do this. I literally bought one to review because I was like, I'm always looking for new stuff for beginners, and Emax has a great history of making good quality products. Anything jump out about this to you?
So it looks like the difference is that the original EZ-Pilot could do everything except acro. So the original EZ-Pilot could not acro. It could do like the leveled flight and the stabilization and angle. But the pro version can do acro. That's the difference.
Oh, you just reminded me. The EZ-Pilot has altitude hold.
Yes. Yeah, that's the big EZ-Pilot draw.
Yes, I forgot that. No, that is exciting. Because you can fly. It's surprisingly good, too.
Yeah, it's basically the easiest way to get somebody new into the hobby. Like if they're scared to touch a controller, that kind of person, especially like a family member or like a young kid, I think are really good opportunities for that. Like, I could put my mom behind an EZ-Pilot and she could fly it with no problem because it just like you let go of the sticks and it just stops and it sits there. And that's like a big thing that people want when they're brand new to the hobby. So this can be really cool to get people into it. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to testing this out when it comes in the mail. But in the meantime, at a price of $239 all in, with altitude hold, I feel, and just based on Emax's history of the quality of the products they've made, I have no problem recommending it if you're looking for a ready-to-fly kit for somebody just getting started.
Next up, let's take a look at another in that whoop size class. We've got the Mobula7 with Express LRS. We've looked previously at the Mobula6 with Express LRS, and now we've got its bigger brother, the Mobula7, now available as well. It's got that 501 AIO with Express LRS that we've seen from Happymodel, and it seems like a good option.
Yeah, I think the move in Tiny Whoops from built-in FreeSky receivers with terrible range to built-in Express LRS receivers with amazing range is like just almost a universal plus. The downside, of course, is that Express LRS is a little bit more of a learning curve to get started with it. But in terms of performance, it just is absolutely a great move. And I'm super excited to see more of these Tiny Whoops coming with Express LRS receivers built in.
When we talked in the previous segment, we talked about what, whoop AIOs there were. And unfortunately, this wasn't one we were able to list and still isn't. And hopefully that will change. This is the 5-in-1 that comes in this, and it's the X12. And that is not currently for sale as a separate AIO. So that's one I would put on the list, but I just wanted to mention that because you can't right now. But it is,
you say that, like Blunty. I've been working with Ciati on a new Tiny Whoop page for my website. And he said, basically, if you want to build a high-end Tiny Whoop, buy a Mobula6 so you can get the frame and the flight controller and then upgrade the motors and maybe the camera. But he basically said you should just buy the quad just for the flight controller and go from there. So, but this is not a bad quad. The Mobula6 and the Mobula7 are pretty solid in their own right. If you're looking for a little bit bigger and a little bit longer flight time than a Mob 6, a Mob 7 with Express LRS built in might be a good choice. Well, from something really small to something much, much bigger, we've got the Diatone Roma F7. And I just wanted to call this out, Blunty, because 7-inch is getting more and more popular. But a lot of times you'll see 7-inch quads built heavy and like a cruiser. But Diatone's going a little bit of a different direction with this F7. You can see here they've got bi-blade props, and it's a little thinner. And it seems like they're doing more of kind of a lightweight than sort of a freestyle basher or cruiser. It's an interesting choice.
So this is more like that long-range style that we were seeing kind of on and off for a little while. But yeah, maybe haven't seen as much of lately. So
they're not skimping on the motor, though. 2808 is a beefy motor. Feels like you could definitely go to heavier props with that 2808. I said earlier, 2806 is sort of the standard size. 2808, 2 millimeters taller. So plenty of motors there if you wanted to go to tri-blades or try to do a little bit more aggressive stuff. And at a price of $359 for the analog version. Not a bad price, to be honest. Plenty. Next up, we're going to look at motors. And I sound like a broken damn record every month. I do. Here are the two new motors that have come out, this month that we are focusing on. The first is the Rush Reactor training motor. Now, when you hear training motor, what do you think? What qualities will that have?
I think it's a strong motor that's super cheap, so you can buy a bunch of them and train with them really hard, so you don't have to worry
bash the shit out of them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's reasonably durable, medium performance, not expensive. This is $20. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. $21.
$21. Yeah. Okay. So hold that thought. Axis Flying Blackbird V3, high-end pilot motor. Blackbird, great freestyle pilot. Axis Flying, great motor manufacturer. $27. I'm sorry. I just will never tell anyone to buy a $28 2207 motor. Because guess what? Guess what I'm going to type? You know it's coming.
Yep. And it's one of those things, too, where it's not like there are motor shortages,
Right. Like exactly.
Sometimes it feels like we're like, people are like, oh, there's a motor shortage. We got to go. We can only, I don't know. It's just very weird that, I don't know, maybe you like buying $27, $28 motors and you feel like there is some increase there, but I know personally I have never experienced that difference. And when you compare something like a Zing 2, which is a Unibel,
right?
It's difficult.
Zing 2, 2306, $21. Is this Zing 2 a better motor than this Rush? Yes. For the Unibel alone.
Yeah, just the fact that that ring's not going to pop off when you slam it into something.
And these are so durable. I have these motors on my Evoque F6, and I crashed it on my gravel driveway. It literally gouged out bits of this metal, but the motor is still, it's a little off balance, but it's still fine. This curved wall, they're so well designed. It's so durable.
Right.
These are super high-end motors in every spec you look at. Titanium shaft. Sound like a broken record. People have heard me say this before. It's $21 for the Zing 2 2306. This needs to be a $15 motor for anyone to even look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm 100% on the same page there. And it also needs to be Unibel at that price. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be some change in the design and the concepts that's going on there.
And you've bitched before about motor manufacturers not releasing the specs for their motors. Now, I don't know if this is just RaceDayQuads product page, but they say they are made with the most durable materials possible. Okay, what alloy of aluminum is that?
Right.
I mean, presumably it's 7075. I wouldn't know because none of the motor specs. Okay, we got thrust charts. Okay, good. We got thrust curve. That's fine. Kudos to you for that. That's useful. What bearing does it have? What alloy aluminum? Don't know. Not to tell you.
Yep.
And likewise with the Blackbird motors, not a Unibel.
That feels like a crazy decision on a $27.50 motor. Like, I don't know. This feels very much like a, hey, we wanted to make a pilot motor. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's very unfortunate because Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry. It's very unfortunate.
I don't know. I just would hope that, I don't know. It just seems like such an odd choice. Like, what's to stop you from making a Unibell? What's to stop you from improving that part of the design or lowering the price? I guess like other people can find a way to do it.
Right.
Well.
So yeah. I mean, that's what's happening is the profit margin. It costs more to make a Unibell. Now, I don't know how iFlight is able to make the Zing 2 motor, which by all rights should be a $25 to $27 motor and would earn that price by being one of the best made motors out there. I don't know how they're able to sell it for $21 and still make enough money to keep making them, but they do. And they're constantly in stock everywhere. And I just feel like that's the motor to beat these days, and I'm just going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
At the $21 price point. You want a $14 motor, Emax Eco. But you can't release a $14 motor that's comparable to the Emax Eco and charge me $21 for it. And you can't release a $27 motor at all when you can get the Zing 2 for $21.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. So.
Okay, one more thing. What about the argument? And you see people make this argument about Mr. Steele's motors as well. They say, well, there's something like Blackbird has a particular thing that he wants from the motor. You know, like the magnets or the windings and you want that specific juicy flavor that you can only get from this one motor.
It seems like
put you on the spot.
That seems like marketing materials.
I agree. At the end of the day, these motors have magnets and windings and bearings, and they spin, and they have a KV, and they have a volume. And exactly. I defy anyone to fly the Axis flying Blackbird 2207 25 kV and another similar 2207 same kV motor. I defy you to fly them back to back and tell me you notice any effing difference. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, we've sucked iFlights this month. We got through that. We're going to rename. Hang on, Blunty. We're just going to rename the motors section to. There we go. We're just going to rename that real quick. Let's move on. Where should we go next?
We've got a new size, or at least a size I haven't seen in quite a while, which is the 7.5-inch prop size. So that's pretty exciting for anybody who is interested in squeezing that extra half-inch, maybe on a 7-inch frame that you've got. You could squeeze it in there. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, just let you know if you're flying 7-inch long range or cruiser, then you might be able to go split that difference between 7 and 8-inch and get a little bit more flight time, perhaps. Thank you, HQ, for that.
Also, T-Motors got a new 4.9 prop. 436, which is their new juicy Spang prop we talked a little bit about on the news. But
Now, if you don't know what Sbang-style is, go to YouTube and look up Farouk FPV. He is one of the pioneers of Sbang-style. And one of the things Spang pilots want is really snappy response. And a lot of them fly 4.9-inch props. That smaller prop is just a little less thrust, but a little bit more response. All right, Blunty, that's props. Next up, we got one charger. We got no batteries this month, but one new charger from ISDT. ISDT, of course, makes good chargers at a price of $70 for 500 watts. This is a single channel charger. So that's not the end of the world. 500 watts is maybe more than most people need, but it goes up to 8S. So it sports the BattAir system. You ever heard of this, Blunty?
I have not. Why don't you tell me what the BattAir system is?
So the BattAir system is a system for managing your batteries on your phone. Doesn't that sound cool?
No. I mean, yes, but I know that it's going to cost money.
You know it's going to cost money? It does cost money. It's even dumber than you think, though. So there's this app where you can see your battery specs, the number of cycles, battery status, and the charger can automatically detect the battery and automatically know how to charge the battery. So cool. Except the only way to make it work is to take this BattAir plug-in and plug it into your balance lead and then leave it there forever.
Yeah. And it's $25?
It surely can't be $25 for one. It can't. That doesn't seem possible. It must be. It's 5 pieces. It's $5 a piece.
Okay.
So,
still crazy. Still ridiculously expensive. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You said the charger recognizes the battery.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't it do that anyway?
Well, so the charger doesn't know the battery's milliamp hours. So it doesn't know the C rate to charge at. It knows the voltage, but not the C rate.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So this is programmed enough where you can say, like, you plug it in and it just knows how to charge it. I see.
Yeah. So like you go into your phone and you say, this battery is 4,000 milliamp hours, but I'm going to charge it at 2C, which is 8 amps. And then when you plug that battery into your charger, it just goes, hey, I'm charging at 8 amps. We're good to go. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Yeah. I mean,
what was that old product? Wasn't there like another product that you stuck on a battery or something and tracked similar to this?
So there is a product out there with an NFC tag that you stick on the battery and you tap the charger and it can read it. That does exist. I forget who makes that. I think maybe it's Venom. I'm not sure. The tap and go. Okay. This is similar to that. But this has Bluetooth built in, and you can read the stuff from your phone. It's very cool, but there's two in my opinion, fatal flaws. And they sent me this, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to review this?" And I was like, once I understood how it worked, I was like, no one should. And one of the fatal flaws is that it costs $5 a piece. So for every one of your batteries, you got to spend $5. And yes, you can move these between battery, but the whole point is that it's associated with the battery. And then the second problem is that it's big. It's hanging off your balance lead. Your balance lead already gets chopped while you fly.
Yeah, and also you can't parallel charge with these, or you can, but it doesn't achieve anything, right?
Correct.
They're not going to have one wire, so it's not going to know like that you have 10 different batteries, and it's not going to see all the 10 different batteries.
I don't know that for sure, but I would assume, yes, that it would not work with parallel charging. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. And also the fact that like these are only for one, like, so you buy a 3 to 4S and that's the one you have, or a 5 to 6S. So it also feels weird because then you're like, oh, I got to buy 5 more of these because I switched to 6S. And I don't know, there's just a lot of issues with adding a $5 thing to each battery you buy.
Yeah. Yeah. So clever, but no. It's still a $70 500 watt 20 amp charger for.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same price.
If you compare to the 608 AC for $65, it does come with a power supply, whereas this one doesn't. I think for most people, a 500 watt charger is overkill. I think most
especially
people
for one battery.
Exactly.
Or one plug-in for like a parallel or whatever. Like that's quite a lot of wattage.
If you're parallel charging, that's different. But it's probably overkill. But anyway, there you go. Okay, Blunty, just a couple more little items. If you have a RadioMaster TX16S, which lots and lots of people do, you're going to break the switches. That's not any slight on the switches. You drop a radio, you break the switch. That just happens. I've had to buy switches before, and there was nowhere in the USA that had switches for the RadioMaster. I had to buy them all the way from China and wait a week to get them, and it was kind of a hassle. RaceDayQuads, and I'll check the other stores before we release this video, and the links will be down below. But RaceDayQuads at least has started carrying replacement switches. They're in stock and will ship quickly, which people in the USA will certainly appreciate. And then one other thing is GetFPV has released a new line of their Lumenier Axii antennas. Axii, of course, really, really good quality antennas. The new Micro Axii has a cool design and a smaller form factor. So if you're looking for micro-sized antennas, here they are. Not the cheapest.
Polyhedral?
Yeah. What is it, 20-sided, 12-sided? I do want to say the Axii line is not the cheapest in the world. If you're looking for something less expensive, the Foxeer Lollipop 4 is a pretty good budget antenna.
Last but not least, let's take a look at Medlin Drone. So Medlin Drone is got a gimbal setup for FPV multirotors. Basically, we've seen head tracking before in wings and planes, especially like full 3-axis where you can look around. And while that is something this kit can do, the main idea that he's been going with here is a 2-axis thing or 1-axis basically, where you're just kind of looking up and down, and that gives you a better idea of ability to follow things and see things with the with the camera. So this can kind of go in anything. It doesn't have to use a head tracking capable goggle. Like a lot of them have head tracking in them, but some don't. So this will work with DJI or any kind of Fat Shark or any kind of off-brand goggle or your box goggles. And yeah, Nerk's got a pretty good video about this too, if you want to check that out and see kind of what it can do. But it seems like a neat little system that's integratable in many different ways and can maybe help you get some better footage when you're shooting. So pretty cool.
Yeah, we see here that both the high def cam and the FPV cam are mounted on the gimbal. And so as he is going backwards and forwards, we don't see the camera pitching forwards and backwards. I can only imagine it must be tricky to learn to fly this because FPV pilots are so used to indexing off the pitch angle to tell how they're going. But especially flying through the trees like this, the ability to look up and down without changing your speed is pretty interesting and pretty exciting. Is this a product people can buy, Blenty?
Yeah, so he offers guides of how to build it all yourself, print stuff. You can buy a couple little parts if you need them from him. He's even got like a kit to bend the servos properly if you need it. And he also sells it in full kits as well on his store. So you can go in and just pick up a whole kit of like whatever you need. So
nice.
Pretty cool.
Nice. Very cool. Oh, including a whole pre-built drone if you want.
He's even got, the Freestyle 5-inch and then also a take can.
Oh, the JB Xylo 5-inch. I'm so honored that he chose my frame. Wow. That's so cool. Now I want to try it out.
Yeah. You have to hit him up.
Yeah, maybe he'll send me one to try. Okay. Blenty, that is all the new products that we thought of this week. It's time to do the giveaway. And I feel like the clear choice this month are our top products. But I got to look at how much they cost before I make a commitment. So we're going to give away 2 of the Tiny Trainer limited edition spec racing DIY kit to 2 winners. In order to enter the giveaway, there are instructions in the video's description below. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom. There is a link to a Google form that you fill out in order to enter. You'll have 3 or 4 days to enter, after which their entries will be cut off. I will make the announcement of the winners in a community post and a pinned comment. So if you're wondering whether I've announced the winners yet, go look in the comments. And if you don't see a pinned comment from me, then I haven't announced the winners yet. I should also say, Blenty, there have been some scams going around YouTube where people make fake accounts, they steal your user pick, and then they comment below people and say you've won. And then they try and get you to give them money. Of course, I will never do that. And I also will never make you give me money. Like they'd say, oh, for shipping, pay me for shipping and I'll send you a prize. That's not how my giveaways work. But always make sure that any comment from me is from my verified account with a check mark next to it. That's how you can know that it's really me. So there we go. Thank you so much, Blenty, for doing this with me every month.
Thank you as well, Joshua. It was a good time. It's always a good time.
Always.
We got to look at the new products.
We got to start recording our 45 minutes of bitching before we do the new product roundup, and we'll make that into a little podcast or something. Although I'm not sure if we'll be okay with the people we piss off when they find out. You say things when private that you wouldn't say in public, so maybe that's a bad idea. But I do enjoy getting together.
We're going to find a happy medium there.
There you go. All right, guys. We'll see you next month. Happy flying.
All right. Take it easy.
What are you doing in here? The least you could do is subscribe or join my Patreon or, like, just here's another video I picked out for you. Jeez.